Hi, my name's Steve Martile, and welcome to the Meeting of the Masters. Let me introduce you to today's special guest. So, Doug Thorpe's passion is working with entrepreneurs to build trust in the workplace. He helps senior executives and business owners break through the invisible wall between management and leadership so that the business keeps growing and you work less. Doug, welcome to the call.
Hi, Steve. Welcome. Glad to be here.
Awesome, brother. So I want to give some context to our conversation, and I also want to give people a sense of who you are, so they know like your background and where you came from. But I ask every guest this question: where were you? What happened? And who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do the work that you're doing today?
Well, that's a great question, and it's really what I consider my lifelong journey, to be honest. I had some great early opportunities to be inspired both by an entrepreneur mom. I was an only child of a single working mom. She quit her corporate job to go start a business, and scary as hell for quite a while there, but certainly it helped show me the benefits of becoming an entrepreneur and basically running your own show. It also lit a passion in me to study management and leadership, and I've been doing that pretty much my whole career. I was an officer in the U.S. Army for a number of years and then left there, joined a large regional bank. I'm based in Houston, Texas, been here most of my adult life, and had leadership and executive opportunities growing progressively with that bank. Left there, started a consulting business, and in the consulting game, I realized there was something to coaching people to be better managers and better leaders.
Okay, got it, man. Awesome. That's great to hear that it was your mother that inspired you to get into becoming an entrepreneur. Although it was a rough road in the beginning. Um, Tell me about trust. Okay, before we get to the team trust model, which is something that you share about, tell me why trust, if someone watching this doesn't have the context, is why trust is important in any business relationship.
Yeah, there's been a lot written, and I think we all kind of know it in our gut, but we maybe don't put words to it. There's a phrase, a guy named Bob Berg that wrote the book Go Giver. He, I think, was attributed with the phrase, we do business with people that we know, like, and trust. You don't get to trust if you don't like somebody, if you don't, and you don't like them, obviously, if you don't know them. So it's a progression, right?
I love
And
it.
the most obvious example of that for most of us that we experience is the whole idea of dating and maybe picking a life partner. We go through a series of events. We meet the person. We maybe fall quickly in love or lust or whatever it is, but you then go through the process of deciding whether you even like the person before you commit that trust and say, yeah, you're my one. So the same thing is true in business and in the workplace. People get jobs and go to work, but there's a basic fundamental hunger in their hearts. They want to trust the environment around them. They want to trust the boss. They want to trust the system. They want to trust the purpose of the work around them. And interestingly, a big hallmark study that was done by the good folks at Google showed this a couple of years ago. Google scratched their head one day and said, you know, we're famous for the way we hire people, but once we get people here, not all our teams do the same good thing. Some
Mm.
teams work a lot less well than others, and yet there are some teams that are just rock stars. So why is that? And Google being Google, they embarked on a 2-year study, and you can check it on the web. All you got to do is Google the term Project Aristotle, and that'll give you the findings. And the number one element that they attribute to the best performing teams is a notion of something they call psychological safety. Fancy word for trust.
Psychological safety.
Psychological safety. And what they found that when employees had this sense of this psychological safety, or I call it simply trust, they give more. They are more open with their thoughts and their ideas and their creativity. They enjoy the work more because it is more open. The sense of threat is eliminated. If I say something, I'm not going to be ridiculed. I'm not going to be called stupid or inferior or whatever. So I think it's an amazing dynamic. Interestingly, I and a partner have had a model to help managers and owners work on building trust in their workplace, and we've had this model actually for almost 30 years. It was first introduced to me in that little regional bank I mentioned. As a manager there, I was taught this model, and it has since become a just kind of a part of my DNA when I talk to clients.
It's so crazy that you say that, Doug, because when I worked in as an engineer, I've worked in some amazing places where there was a lot of trust, and I've worked at some other places, or actually there was phases when I worked in Toronto as an engineer earlier in, like in my 20s. And I remember I worked with a couple of other engineers, and it was always a competition about like being the smartest in the room. And you didn't have to say it. That was just like the de facto environment. And because of that, there was a lack of psychological trust. There was definitely a lack of trust. And because of that, there was a lot of conflict, no collaboration,
Yep.
always like, and then what happened was I was there 2 years at this one company, and they brought in this consultant that worked as a consultant, as an engineer, but he came in as basically my mentor, as a kind of like a boss or a mentor to me. But with him, that wasn't an issue. He was confident in himself. He didn't need to, demeanor or like let other people know that he was smarter than them. When that went out of the way, I built a very strong relationship with him. And I remember years later, after I left the company, I was applying for some other work, and I actually reached out to him, and he was like halfway across the world, and he got back to me right away. We jumped on a phone call and like just had that level of trust. So tell me more about this process. Is this the team trust model that you're referring to?
Yes, yes. The model itself, the process or the program is called the team trust model.
Okay, cool. Are you going to share your screen?
Yeah, let me do that. Well,
Cool.
first, let me say one kind of lead-in piece, so and it kind of plays off of what you just described.
Okay, cool.
There is a fundamental element that all employers deal with. They hire people, and whether their hiring practice is good, bad, or indifferent, they work on hiring people, right? So they get people to show up for work, and then in no time they start doubting what they just did. They watch a guy show up and not work real hard or not work real well, and they scratch the owner or the employer scratches their head doing why, asking why. Here's the fundamental dynamic. Every person that shows up for work, you, me, everybody we might employ, they have two levels of effort. They've got a base level that just demonstrates their fundamental skills and abilities. It's what a lot of employers can relate to. It's that bare minimum that won't get you fired, but it's sure not putting a lot of extra on the table. So that's that base level. But then the level above that is what I call the discretionary effort. I, as a worker, can choose how much effort I give to the work I'm doing. And it's when I have that sense of trust and belonging that I'm willing to dip into that tank of discretionary effort and lay that into the work I'm doing to do a little more, work a little harder, stay a little later, all those things. And the good manager leader that can understand that dynamic and figure out ways to inspire their teams to dip into that bank account, that's the place that you start seeing high trust. And with high trust, you get high performance.
I love it. I love how you call it a bank account. That's so good. That's such a great metaphor. Okay,
Yeah, so
great,
let
man.
me, I can pop up the model here.
Okay, cool. Great segue into this model. Yeah, the bank account of trust. There was a few years ago I started using it. Emotional equity. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe Brian Tracy or someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about depositing emotional equity over time. If you keep doing it, eventually it will come back to you, right?
And that's really exactly the same principle we talk about with this trust model. It has to start with the owner, the leader. They have to be able to give trust to get trust. So the owner,
That's I just gotta pause you there, man, because there are people that may be listening to this that do not fall in that category. If you do not give it, you are not going to be able to get it
nope,
back.
you
Yeah.
can't demand it. You
So
can't
good.
crack the whip, and you can't be the manager or the owner of a company and walk out on the shop floor and crack a whip and say, all right, everybody trust me.
Hell no.
Not going to happen. Not
Okay,
going to
got
happen.
it. Got it. That's good, man.
In
So
fact,
there's
that'll probably go 180 the opposite direction,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So there's a sense of accountability. You got to own your own level of trust so that you can basically give it to others. Got it.
Yeah. So the thing that I've run into and why I think this model is so powerful, it's happened time and time again. I go talk to executives, leaders, and owners of businesses, and what I tell them is when you really start breaking this down, what you need is a process. You can't teach, coach, or inspire things that are just fuzzy and shapeless and ethereal. You got to be able to break things down into tangible, executable events that you can work with. And the same is true with a method to build trust. So what this model does, it comes from the premise also, I said, every employee that shows up for work has this ability to do extra work, but they also show up with a long list of questions. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, these questions are constantly percolating. And if you, as a leader or an owner, can't answer these questions in a good way, where the employee can literally go back to the know, like, and trust. I know what he's talking about. I like what I'm hearing, and now I trust the process. You as a leader, if you can't answer these questions, your people are going to be dazed and they won't buy in, and you won't get to that highest level of trust. So let me real quick kind of run through how this breaks down. Number one on the list is what I call the people question. And that's a very fundamental one. That's somebody, I'm an employee, and I'm sitting there looking at you, my boss, going, do I even want to be here? Real basic. I mean, we're talking like Maslow's hierarchy, basic need kind of idea. So you hope that you can kind of, as a leader, you can kind of get through that one pretty quick. Just talk to them in generality, a lot of the things they might be dealing with, etc. But that question is going to stay on the table, and we'll talk about what I call a regressive process. We'll get to that in just a minute. If you get past number one, you advance to number two, and it's the purpose. Why is the team here, or why is this business here? What is it we're trying to accomplish? What market are we trying to serve? What product are we putting out there? Can I, as an employee, get excited about the purpose of what we're doing? And the leader has to be clear on that. This is where a leader's vision comes into play. A lot is talked about when you study leadership books. They talk about vision and casting that picture of where the leader thinks they're going. Well, that's this purpose. Number three is the plan. You listen to the purpose and you say, all right, what's the plan? How are we going to do this? Does the plan make sense to me? Can I understand the plan and all the elements that go into that? And do I see any roadblocks? So if I'm an employee, I look at the plan and I say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's the leader's responsibility to show me how the plan can work. And then you move on to process, or you can use the word practice. This is where the work actually gets done. It's, go out in the shop, go out to the store, go out to the market, whatever, and look at the tools, systems, process, procedures, practices, all of that. In bigger business, a lot of times what happens, A team can get all mobilized and energized, but when they go to execute, they realize, oops, there's this huge company policy out there we didn't know about, and it's not going to let us do this thing. So how do we get past that? So there's some sticking points there in the process that can work. And then you move on to number 5. That's performance. A lot has been written today about how do you evaluate employees, how do you keep score, how do you hold them accountable and yet still keep them inspired. There's systems all over the place that make an effort at doing this, but it's an ongoing problem. And I think anybody anywhere that's ever tried to administer a performance appraisal system will tell you there aren't any answers for that. You sort of take your best shot. But the key question in the employee's mind at the root of it all is the system going to be fair? Am I going to get recognized for what I'm doing? And is it going to be equitable to everybody around me? And then lastly is the payoff. And payoff sounds like compensation. And yes, compensation is a part of it, but it's not limited to that. It's also that sense of greater good. Am I proud of the work I'm doing? Is our
Yeah.
company recognized as an industry leader? Whatever those things may be.
Yep.
If it's that brand
Brilliant.
identity. So here's the dynamic, and a typical employee is going to come to work, like I said, with all these questions in their mind. They're going to start getting educated about all the different steps, and they may fall back a step or two. They'll be kind of working their way around the circle here and through the process, but then they bump into something that is a demotivator, and it might send them all the way back to number one. And
Right.
quickly fall back to number one and say, this is nuts. I don't know that I want to be here anymore. And so the leader or the owner, manager, has to be responsible for guiding their team, whether it's training, team meetings, practice, opportunity, whatever. They have to lead them through these questions, and they have to be on constant watch for how their team is doing, and do you see anybody sort of falling back?
Right,
You
right.
know,
Because it's like it, there's an unsaid agreement, right? When someone answers like the first question, do I want to be on this team? And they say, okay, yes or no. And even though that question may not have verbally been asked, people with their body language will tell you that they don't want to be there. They go in the
right,
back door or they're in the shop or they're wherever, and they're talking about all the crap that the owner said they don't agree with. Like that sort of thing happens, and those people create even worse situations for everyone. So yeah, so I guess this unsaid agreement is really about navigating these 6 questions or these 6 areas of the process on an ongoing basis, like you said, so that you make sure there is alignment, there is agreement, and constantly
right,
working it.
right. And the really cool thing I've seen happen everywhere I've implemented this, help teams put this in play, it actually becomes the lexicon for how the team operates and works together. And I've done implementations, and I've gone back a couple of months later and sat in on a team meeting as they do the classic walk around the table, bring your issues to the team. People will actually be talking, and they'll phrase their words like, we're stuck at number 3. We discovered a step in our plan that's not going to work. So let's, here at the team level, let's solve this. Let's figure this out. What's a good alternative? Do we just absolutely have to have that step? Can we do something else? Et cetera, et cetera. But it becomes the whole framework that the team starts communicating with each other. And the interesting dynamic about that, when they can point their commentary to a tangible area on this chart, they take all the personality out of it. They're not critiquing you, Steve, you goofed up. You missed number 3 on the step here. But they're saying, no, the process is broken.
Right. Right. So then you can go back to that. So it's a more objective as opposed to, like you said, someone specific.
Right,
I
right,
love it. I love it. Cool,
right,
man. And this is what you call the team trust model.
right.
Now, what if you get someone who is um they're basically at the very beginning and they're like, I don't even know if I want to be on this team. I guess at that point you realize you made the wrong hire. They're really not a fit. Or if someone has gone through the whole process and then they're 2 years at the company and then they go back to number one, they realize, I mean, is there a way to, what's the frequency of these conversations? How do you, elicit those, I don't want to say problem childs or just people that don't fit?
Yeah, great question. There's no doubt that there's a spectrum here of participation through this process. And you raised a classic example that may ultimately kind of fall out on the outlier part of the spectrum, right? So they've come in, they've worked, they've hung in for 2 years. My guess is after a full 2 years, if they regress all the way back to number one and say, I'm not sure I want to be here all along, I would really question whether or not they made any real meaningful progress in any other step during those 2 years. And there was probably some warning signs that they weren't going to make it. The flip side of that, though, the power of this model that I've seen develop is as team members start getting on board with how all this comes together, this process actually has a momentum building dynamic about it, and you can feel the hum in the operation as it gets going when more and more people are going around the questions going yes, 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 and they keep doing it. It builds this momentum, and as a leader, what you'll start seeing is things like Sally called in sick today, but Bill jumps up and says, I know what Sally's doing today. I'll take care of it. I got it. I got her back. And you as a boss or owner didn't even have to ask him to do that. He just jumped in and did it. And again, that goes back to that principle. People start tapping into their discretionary effort, extra effort, covering for each other, helping each other. And by covering, I don't mean it in a bad way, but in a good way, helping each other out.
Oh, that's brilliant, man. So it's about that, having that level of trust is about building momentum, but it's also that collaboration at a higher level because of that individual coming up and putting in that discretionary effort that you call.
Right.
So can you give me one more again? I just want you to say it again, just because discretionary effort versus bare minimum. What's the discretionary effort again? Your definition of it?
Yeah, it's the idea that all of us show up with two fundamental capacities. We come to work with our bare minimum. That's our toolkit of experiences and training and learning that we bring to the job. And if we apply that and nothing more, we are probably going to do okay producing some work. The company's going to be all right. It's not going to be great, but the owner might even be making his numbers, and people clock out at the end of the day and it's over and no big deal, and come back and do it all over tomorrow. That's that bare minimum. But there's another gear or another notch that I call discretionary effort. That's the one where I've got extra energy, I've got extra motivation, I've got extra ability that I may apply to what's going on at work. I want to do it because I like the purpose, I like the plan, I like the people. It's just, it's my happy place to go to work and get things done. And so I'm going to voluntarily dip into that bank of discretionary effort on a more frequent basis. And it's some people talk about it, the 110% effort kind of thing.
I love it. That's brilliant, man. I love discretionary effort. Cool. I learned something new today. Doug, where can people go if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, the best place is on my website at dougthorpe.com. On the homepage right there's a place you can sign up for my newsletter. I do post articles about leadership and small business activities on a regular basis. You'll get all the tips, tricks, and hacks there. There is another page on the website dedicated to team trust. You can there's a link at the top of the homepage, or just for those writing, dougthorpe.com/team trust. Just one
Awesome.
word, no punctuation, one word, team trust.
There's a link below as well. If you want to go to dougthorpe.com, just go to the link below in the show notes. You can click on it. It'll bring you right to Doug's website and you can see exactly what he's talking about. So Doug, just wanted to summarize a couple things that you mentioned, the two different levels of effort. We talked about that, the bare minimum versus discretionary effort, the happy place where someone feels more motivated to get things done and which helps the business excel at the highest level. And a deep dive that we went in those questions that you talked about in the team trust model, which shows team members not only how to build momentum for business ROI, but also how to get the company and the team to collaborate at a higher level. Brilliant, man. Doug,
Right.
thanks so much for joining me on the call today.
You bet, Steve. Happy to be here.
Awesome. If you enjoyed today's guest interview, please subscribe to our channel by clicking the link down below. My name's Steve Martile, and we'll talk to you next time.